Hi, everybody, and welcome to Pac-12 Chalk Talk, your source for everything Pac-12 football. My name is Mike Sackley, and in studio tonight, from left to right, we have our panelists, Ben Haber, Pierce Bly, and Robbie Baker. Let's get right down to business with the Washington State-Colorado game that had a final score of 31-27. The game came right down to the wire with a Washington State comeback late in the fourth quarter. Now, guys, no comeback is possible without a player stepping up and taking control. So starting with Ben, which Cougar do you think lit the fire and led his team to the W?
I think it's a plural thing. The Cougars' defense really stepped up. Obviously, you'll hear from the offense in a second. But I want to make a case for the defense. Really played very well, coming up with the big stops to give the offense the opportunity to go down the field and convert and go on to win the game.
I'm going to go ahead and give it to Marshall Lobestall, the quarterback for Washington State. He led the Cougars back to within a field goal with 2 minutes and 35 seconds remaining, then hit Marquise Wilson on a 63-yard bomb to go ahead. He was definitely the main reason that the Cougars won.
And I'm going to say the player that stepped up the best was Marquise Wilson. His 63-yard touchdown reception was huge. And also, Colorado, though, I just want to point out, had two converted offensive players playing on their defense this week. So it was very easy for the Cougars to pick apart that secondary in the second half.
Now, this comeback by the Cougars was their first comeback win since 2008. It's been a couple of tough years football-wise for the Wazoo Cougars. Pierce, do you think there was a specific play in this game that really turned momentum around?
Well, I don't know if it was a specific play, Mike, but I actually think it was the drive by the Cougars after they went down 27-17 with 5:11 remaining. The Cougars went 77 yards on just 7 plays to get back to within 24-21. So I think that's a main reason that they were able to pull it out.
I think the play that changed the course of this game was after Washington State only went down by 1 score, they elected to kick the ball deep, and the coach decided to let his defense give them a chance to win the game. They had 3 timeouts, and by kicking the ball deep, it let them win the field position battle and ultimately set the Cougars up for the game-winning drive.
Boulder quarterback Tyler Hansen, 3rd and 6 on the 46-yard line of Washington State, was not able to convert. Washington State went on to get the 63-yard touchdown to Marquise Wilson. So I think that was a big play of the game. Also, Washington State, just the mentality they have this year, expecting to win football games on the road, that definitely helped them.
Now, this past weekend, we saw our Pac-12 quarterbacks put up some impressive numbers across the board with a combined total of 570 yards per game. Now, Robbie, with only 3 Pac-12 teams in the AP Top 25, how do our quarterbacks compare to other conferences' quarterbacks?
Well, Mike, you look at the numbers here on the screen, and the numbers will tell you that the Pac-12 has one of the best passing conferences in the nation. Some sheer names for you: Nick Foles, Andrew Luck, Matt Barkley, all expected to be top draft picks this upcoming year. And now the emergence of Brock Osweiler and Keith Price as potentially elite quarterbacks is really showing that this conference is grooming quarterbacks for the future.
Yes, the Pac-12 definitely has a plethora of talent on the quarterbacks in the Pac-12, but the thing is the defenses aren't as good, so I think that's got to be weighed into the equation. But there's no denying Andrew Luck, possibly a Peyton Manning when he goes on to the next level. Nick Foles has proven to be very solid this year, Matt Barkley, and I'm not even talking about Keith Price, who leads the nation in touchdown passes.
I think it's very hard to compare the Pac-12 quarterbacks with quarterbacks from other conferences just because the Pac-12 is so pass-friendly. Just this past week, out of the 10 Pac-12 teams that played, there were 392 pass attempts as compared to 304 rushing attempts. When you look at other teams from other conferences, most of those teams are much more balanced in their attacks.
Now, it was a must-win game for both the Arizona Wildcats and the USC Trojans in the Coliseum, and it proved to be a fight till the end last weekend with a final score of 48-41 in favor of the Trojans. With so much going on in this game, Ben, break it down. This box score reads a lot more offensively and not so much defensively. Do you feel that was the case?
Definitely, Mike. I think both offenses expected to have good days with these weak defenses. USC quarterback Matt Barkley posted 468 yards, which is a school record, also had 4 TDs, 1 interception. And if you're posting a school record at the quarterback position at USC, you know you're doing big things with Matt Leinart and Carson Palmer, just recent quarterbacks.
Well, I think when you look at the quarterbacks, there were 93 total pass attempts between both Barkley and Foles. And when you have Pac-12 defenses where only 4 of them are in the top 50 in the country, none of them are in the top 25, you're bound to get some high scores like this.
Absolutely, and some sheer numbers from this past game. Both teams were over 50% on 3rd down. Both teams had over 500 yards of offense and averaged about 8 to 12 yards per play. Those are ridiculous offensive numbers, and honestly, I would expect more from USC's defense.
After pulling out the win last weekend versus Arizona, it seems like USC's freshmen are stepping up and fighting on for the Trojans. Pierce, how big a role do you think the underclassmen like Xavier Grimble and Robert Woods are playing on this team?
Well, obviously, Marquise Lee and Robert Woods are two top-tier wide receivers in the Pac-12, and they're great options for Matt Barkley to turn to. That being said, Matt Barkley threw for 468 pass yards this game, a school record out of a program that has produced a lot of very good quarterbacks in the past. I got to give the main reason that the Trojans won to Matt Barkley.
Robert Woods had a great game, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns. One thing people should know, though, is that even though the USC Trojans have some sanctions against them in regards to recruiting and not being able to play in the postseason, Lane Kiffin knows what he's doing out there, and he's recruiting a lot of kids for the small amount of scholarships that they have, and they have a lot of young talent on this team.
Everybody knows about Xavier Lee, and you also have Robert Woods, but the thing that makes them so unique is they have Grimble. Grimble is very good, and he's a 6'6 player, weighs in at 245 pounds, gives Matt Barkley a great third target for him. I really like what he's going to be able to do, and he's going to be the star of this program like Woods is now in a couple years.
Now, it was a busy weekend in the Pac-12. Let's go ahead and take a look at a quick recap of some of the scores from this past weekend. Arizona State a 35-20 winner over the Oregon State Beavers in Tempe. Stanford a 45-19 winner over UCLA. Washington a big win for them in Salt Lake City, a 31-14 win over the Utes. Washington State, like we mentioned, a 31-27 comeback win over Colorado. And USC a 48-41 win over the Wildcats. Now, Robbie, to win games, you got to find a way to put points up on the board. So I'm going to ask you who your offensive player of the week was from that last weekend.
Offensive player of the week for me was Stephen Taylor of Stanford. He had 17 carries, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a big win over UCLA.
I liked Robert Woods. 14 receptions, 255 yards, 2 TDs. A great game, and what makes him so unique is he can go over the middle and make a big-time catch like Terrell Owens used to do in the NFL, and he can take the top off of defense. Robert Woods, a great target for Matt Barkley all year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go with Chris Polk of Washington in this one. I picked the Utes to win at home last weekend, but Washington ended up outrushing the Utes by 168 yards. Chris Polk was a great reason for that.
Now, Ben, who impressed you on the other side of the ball? Who is your defensive player of the week?
Jordan Poyer, cornerback out of Oregon State. Although it was a losing effort, he had 2 interceptions in the first quarter, 3 tackles, and guarded Aaron Pflugrad amazingly. He chased him all around the field. He only had 3 catches for 33 yards on the game, was a dynamic player for Oregon State.
I'm going to have to go with Arizona State's Alden Darby. The first 2 interceptions of his career coming last weekend off of Oregon State's Sean Mannion. ASU needed people in their secondary to step up after Omar Bolden went out with an injury this week, and Darby is obviously stepping up for the Sun Devils. I'm
going to take Washington, sophomore safety Sean Parker, he had 6 tackles, an interception in that game, a big win for Washington on the road.
All right, guys, it's time for that lightning round of picks of who will come out ahead in Week 6. Pierce, will start with you. California at number 9, Oregon, and Arizona at Oregon State.
Yeah, Oregon is going to run, jump, pass, absolutely annihilate Cal's defense. I've got Oregon winning big at home. And for Arizona and Oregon State, besides Jordan Poyer, Oregon State's secondary is a bit undersized. I look for Nick Foles to take advantage of that, Arizona in that one.
Yeah, I got to agree with both picks there. I think Oregon will be way too much for Cal to handle. They're way too athletic of a team. As far as the Arizona and Oregon State game goes, I think it'll be a win for Arizona. Oregon State showed that they have a good secondary against ASU last week, but Nick Foles is a higher level of quarterback than they faced with Brock Osweiler.
I like Oregon over Cal. I think Oregon's going to be a little too much. I have Oregon 45-17 in that game. Deron Thomas is going to have a big game. Keith Price had a big game against that same Cal secondary a week ago. And then I like in the Arizona matchup versus Oregon State, I like Arizona 48-27, getting their second win of the season over Northern Arizona. Nick Foles will be too much for that Oregon State secondary.
Alrighty, next up we have our next 2 games. Number 22, Arizona State at Utah, and Colorado at number 7, Stanford. Robbie, we'll start with you. Who comes out ahead in these 2 games?
I will take ASU over Utah on the road. It'll be the first real road test besides Illinois for this ASU team. So I've got ASU winning that game on the road, even though the conditions might not favor them. As far as the Stanford-Colorado game, it should be a huge win for Stanford.
I like Arizona State to get a win on the road at Utah. I know they're 4-13 since 2008 on the road, but I think they're going to do a good job. And Keith Price and the Washington offense had a good game against them a week ago. Really like what Chris Polk was able to do, getting 189 yards. Expect Cameron Marshall to really get the ground going. Rainy there. They're going to run the ball. Marshall's going to have a good game, lead the Sun Devils to a victory.
Yeah, ASU is going to win in Utah. They can essentially seal up the Pac-12 South if they get a win in Salt Lake City. I expect Dennis Erickson to have his team ready for that. As for Stanford, if you think Andrew Luck picked apart UCLA's secondary, just wait until he gets a hold of Colorado's defense.
Now, with USC and Washington both on byes, our final game is Washington State at UCLA. Ben, who comes out in a matchup of two teams trying to prove themselves in the Pac-12 conference?
I like Washington State winning 31-20. I really like what Lobostel has been able to do. He has a very good connection with Wilson, and they're a great underrated duo, rising duo, and I really like them to win this matchup.
Kirk Herbstreit of ESPN picked UCLA to win the Pac-12 South. So for this reason, I'm going to call this my upset pick of the week. I have Washington State. I've been very impressed by Lobostel, who has stepped in as a replacement quarterback this year.
And I'm going to disagree with you guys. I'm going to take UCLA at home, mainly because they're at home. Wazoo has had a good season thus far, but I think going on the road to UCLA, it'll be a loud environment for them to play in. I'll take UCLA in this one.
All right, guys, before we say goodbye, I need to know which of these matchups are you most excited to watch and why? We'll start with Pierce.
I'm excited to watch the ASU-Utah game. ASU, like I said, can essentially seal up the Pac-12 South with a win. Dennis Erickson's team is going to come out firing.
And I'm excited for the Cal and Oregon game, mainly because of the sheer amount of Heisman candidates I'll be on the field. LaMichael James, Duron Thomas, they should put up huge numbers and pad their Heisman stock in this one.
I like the Arizona-Oregon State game. Both teams going in different directions. Arizona, actually, they're both on a slide right now, but Oregon State trying to build on their momentum from last week, especially the first half against Arizona State, and look for Arizona to get a win. They're second of the season. They've had a really tough schedule, so it's their first true opponent outside of Northern Arizona, and I really like what Foles is doing in Arizona.
We've come to the end of another episode of Pac-12 Chalk Talk. To stay up to date with everything that is happening in the world of Pac-12 football, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Pac-12 Chalk Talk, find us on Facebook, and of course subscribe on YouTube. For Ben Haber, Pierce Bly, and Robbie Baker, I'm Mike Sackley, and we'll see you next week.